From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of iPods Media. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 172 of From the Middle. We are a podcast hailing to you from Central Ohio. This week's episode, we eat pizza, drink tequila, we eat Kit Kats from England, and we drink Mountain Dew from America. We let you know about our thoughts on all of those fun things. Kendall has a nostalgic week as he starts to receive a newspaper, and we talk about that for a long time. We also talk about NASA getting into Armageddon science, and we also talk about some answers from the middle when it comes to neighbors and etiquette and asking people to do things. Should you, shouldn't you? What's a big ask? Should you do anything in return? Corey is, what's this say here? Singing Boyle?
Boys
is what I meant to write down. Did I tell you there was tequila in this episode? Corey is on his way to England, maybe, hopefully, possibly, to see a couple of our friends. And finally, we go over a bunch of stuff that we're streaming, and Apple has been reading Corey's mind and did some updates. All in this episode. Whew. I got through it.
Play that intro music. Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it?
You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved. From the middle after dark over here.
I wish listeners could have been in the car moments ago when Dylan and I are singing at the top of our lungs the Seth MacFarlane version of Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way from the movie Sing. And when we were scooping into the notes at the beginning of each lyric and then laughing so hard that we sounded exactly the same. That was fun. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
And to be clear, we weren't singing Seth MacFarlane's cover of I Did It My Way along to Frank Sinatra. We were singing like Seth MacFarlane would sing as Frank Sinatra.
Right.
I Did It My Way from the movie Sing.
That was good.
So it's a very big difference of how you're trying to sound. If you're trying to sound like Sinatra or yourself or Seth MacFarlane in this case, who has a very, in a good way, generically rat packy, Broadway-ish.
He's got that bronze vocal
kind of voice that's like, it's extra, but in a good, it's the good extra. He's just extra. Yeah. And it was so much fun.
So where were we going? So we wanted to surprise Kendall this evening with a pizza.
And did you ever?
From Eagles Pizza in New Albany, Ohio, a taco pizza, one that Kendall has had his eye on since his childhood. One that he's already had.
Oh, but round two was beautiful.
And to go with said taco pizza, I have brought Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's tequila Teremana. Mana Gratitude Tequila. So I have already partaken. I've already had some. But you guys have not tried it yet. No. So we have two varieties. We have the Blanco version, which is clear. And then we have the Reposado, which is aged in oak barrels anywhere from 2 to 12 months. As Kendall mentioned, from the color of it, it looks like it's maybe licked the inside of a barrel quickly. And so I'm excited for you guys to try the Rock's tequila as Kendall spills it all over his MacBook Pro.
It smells like burning.
Kevin Hart.
Yeah, this works out.
Kevin Hart has his own.
He has his own tequila?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I've been watching Welcome to Wrexham, and based on Dylan's recommendation, and Ryan Reynolds has his Aviation American Gin. So all these celebs getting into spirits. But anyway, to taco pizzas and recording the podcast in person. Cheers. Cheers.
And I found out, I was looking it up. I don't know if Ryan Reynolds is even like a majority owner or even a part owner. He has some kind of interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're paying him as like a marketing piece or something.
You want to shut up and nose the glass?
Uh,
You know how to nose?
yeah, it's
You got to open your mouth when you do it, though. So nose it and open your mouth.
Go from side to side because one nostril will be better than the other.
And then let it wash over your tongue, hit the roof of your mouth.
It's all so terrible.
What you should do, Dylan, is just like take one quick drink and like down that sip, and then just let the alcohol burn off from that sip, and then you'll be possibly more acclimated for sip number 2 for tasting.
Okay. I also found out American gin is made in aviation. American gin is made in Seattle. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
It's like Portland.
All right.
Portland
Go
or
Seattle.
One of those.
Bottoms up. I'm excited to hear what you guys think of this. I fall for all the gimmicks. You all know I like a good story.
I know nothing about tequila. I'm a whiskey guy. This is probably like the second tequila I've ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's less burny up front than I
Smooth
was
up front.
expecting. The smell is far worse than the taste.
Okay.
It's very smooth up front.
Very smooth up front, little burny on the back, very burny on the nose. Nose hairs are gone. But
Yeah.
I'll grow new hairs on my old hairs and new hairs on those
You know,
hairs.
there's nosing glasses that make nosing easier.
I'm just trying to make
This-
it
these
through
are not
two.
them.
Just trying to make it through 2 sips to get back to my Dr. Pepper. I'm telling you.
Well, you got to finish that off, man, so we can get to the oak barrel stuff. Is the Blanc tequila versus the oaked tequila, is one of those like the more of the norm, or any idea?
No, because I too am not a tequila expert, but
Okay.
the sense that I get is that this is more of the original tequila, because tequila is typically clear like that. And then this is like trying to be a little more, not whiskey and bourbon-y, but, give you the oaky sort of vanilla,
Little bit of
the richness.
Oaky afterbirth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, months to a year, or is that what you said?
2 months to 12 months.
2 months to 12 months.
Yeah.
2 months to a year is so okay. So that's respectable, especially down where it's where this is probably made, in warm weather.
Mm-hmm.
That could impart significant flavor. Not as much as say whiskey. So whiskey drinkers probably would be, because with whiskey you're talking years.
Yeah.
Even in the warmer climates.
Right. So with the Blanco, you're going to notice bright citrus with a smooth, fresh finish. And with the Reposado, you're going to notice notes of an oak and vanilla with more of a smooth, rich finish.
And with the Dr. Pepper, you're going to notice 23 unique
Some of the wine
flavors.
stuff doesn't work with the tequila stuff.
Does not.
Nope.
Do you want to try this one?
Nope.
Okay. Kendall's down.
I'm coming for you.
Heyo. Anyway, I've been excited to let you guys try that. Because
I'm
we're
excited.
we're big wrestling fans, or at least were.
I'm excited that you were excited. If we're talking about drinks,
Doesn't like it.
If you're talking about
Doesn't
drinks
like
from The Rock that you should try if you're more like me, he has a healthier energy drink called Zoa.
Right. Zoa.
It's delicious. I found mine at Costco in a 3-flavor pack which was like white peach, orange, and fruit punch. And they're delicious. And I highly recommend Zoa if you're not into Teremana like me.
Teremana.
It does sound very cool. Teremana.
Anyway, that's what I had to share. Taco pizzas and tequila.
Yeah.
Man, it's good to be back. It's been a minute since we've been together.
Very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is smoother, friendlier. The when I say smoother, I'm typically talking about like a mouthfeel kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like Mountain Dewy kind of smooth, and but it is also friendlier. I don't know if the ABV is different.
I'm sure that's how The Rock described it to the product testing people when he was making a case for what he wanted. Something with kind of a Mountain Dewy.
Probably. I don't think The Rock made any decisions.
Mouthfeel.
I think The Rock had an agent, and that
No,
agent
come
was
on.
like, hey,
somebody
I
walked,
want to believe. I want to believe.
somebody walked up to The Rock with a flight board with like 6 different kinds on it, and they said, "Pick which one you want to be your brand."
The Rock was in the commercials in the fields with the Hispanic people picking the agave from the fields. He's involved. I want to believe.
he is involved without his financial support.
So what I was saying was, it's good to be back together again.
Yes.
It's been far too long
Oh,
since
my
we've
goodness.
been back in the studio.
This is far better.
Just because of scheduling and life and whatever, it's been challenging to get back in the studio. But there's a different vibe when we're together in person, and I really
It's
miss
true.
it, and I enjoy it.
Not to mention that like the recording is
so much gooder.
it's so much gooder, and I mean not just the audio quality. Like I can get our voices to match up better in the post edit stuff, but man, there's so much stuff that you can't when you're zooming. You can try to react out loud and that kind of thing, and sometimes it gets cut out because of the way Zoom works and that sort of thing. This is just better.
And it sometimes feels like unless you're watching on YouTube, you don't know that we're actually really laughing at one another because, as you mentioned, it defaults to the primary speaker.
Yeah.
And so it kind of mutes out the other two.
Right.
It's like we're not just like letting each other die up there. We're actually laughing at what each other's sharing. You just never hear it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
here you get the nice layered effect. It's good.
Yeah, and Zoom doesn't give you the feet smell that you get in here.
That's also true. Yeah.
There's a distinct kind of curry blend, toe jam and Earl type feet smell that you get,
Earl, throwback 90s video game
that you get when you're in studio with other men, and that's irreplaceable.
Men eating taco pizza together, no less.
Yeah.
And
Thank goodness there wasn't refried beans on that.
the second
taco
half
pizza.
of this episode of recording is going to be ripe. Which we will have dessert later. That is coming up eventually.
I'm
We'll
very
probably do
excited.
that after the break because I
Yeah.
have some cutting up to do. But that'll be coming. And and we can tie that into possibly some news from Corey when we do that because of where dessert is from.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In current news, first question I have for you is this. The other day, I came across an advertisement from the Wall Street Journal. And I have looked into subscribing to the Wall Street Journal before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more money than I was probably willing to pay, at least on a trial basis. And it came across at 12 weeks for $12. You get 6 days of subscription, like delivered to your driveway, old school print. Plus, you get the digital stuff included with that. And so this was my opportunity to try it. And it just started this week, just picked up this week. And like I have missed so many things about just having a paper. I was one of those nerds in my 20s who like had the USA Today coming to them. And I used to read the paper on a daily basis.
Pause. In
Yeah.
your 20s,
In my 20s.
you read USA Today,
Yes.
paper version.
Paper version, print, daily.
Continue.
Yeah. I mean, the smartphones were kind of on their way in, but they weren't what they are now.
Sure.
Right. So having a physical paper was still a thing back in those days. And before that, like growing up, certainly my family had a paper every day. And I remember like sometimes leafing through it and enjoying that and the smell of the ink on that cheap paper. And then like having a stack of old newspapers to use to start fires or to pack up your glasses or to lay out to dye Easter eggs or whatever else. Like you can wrap gifts in that stuff. Like having all of that like started to come back to me. And there was this nostalgia that started hitting me. And I love having a newspaper. And I don't know if it's going to end up being worth the full subscription price when all is said and done. But as of right now, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I've read it every day that I've gotten it so far. I think that's going to continue. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about newspapers? Do you have it? Is there anybody else who would feel a connection to something like that?
I mean, think about the dollars you'll save on wrapping paper for
Sure.
Christmas. Whole dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say wrapping gifts though, because our grandma who recently passed away would take the comics or
funnies.
the quote funnies,
Mm-hmm.
would take those and use those, not any newspaper page, but specifically just the comics and funnies, and wrap the kids' gifts in them. It was
Fun.
this extra bit of fun
For Christmas and birthday.
for Christmas and birthdays and stuff if you got your gift wrapped in the funnies paper. Now, she would also reuse used wrapping paper if it was in good shape. But the getting your gift in the funnies was kind of fun. This extra layer of
I appreciate
we
that.
had already read them. We knew they stacked up, their papers, and they could keep those. So it would be very nostalgic for me for you to send me things wrapped in newspaper.
Yeah.
So anytime.
Did she ever try to theme which comic was going to which kid? No.
If
Didn't get
that
fancy?
layer of thought was ever there, I was too young to notice.
Okay.
So I'm not going to discredit an effort that might have been there.
Mhm.
Or
But-
even which comic strip was on top of the gift. I don't
Yeah,
think so.
I probably not, but maybe she did.
My parents used to if they came across a comic that reminded them of one of us kids, they would cut it out and tape it to our door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I'll say recently I've had several things that have made me feel very nostalgic for my youth or things from the youth. It wasn't newspapers, but I've had several of those moments. So that very distinct kind of warm but kind of sad feeling that you have, I've had several times recently.
Okay.
I just don't know that it would ever be for the newspaper. I don't know.
Okay. I recognized even in my 20s that I'm the only one my age who's getting in USA Today. Who's paying for an international or a national newspaper.
Yeah.
As you're setting up this question, though, I'm looking over at you and I'm looking at your glasses and your shirt, and I'm like, you're exactly the type of person that would find great enjoyment from a paper newspaper. And don't read into that anything that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that makes total sense from what I know of you and the appreciation that you have for, I don't want to say things because that sounds like you're materialistic, but you appreciate things like a good watch. You like a good watch.
It's there's a tactile experience.
You like a good leather bag.
I like a good leather bag, good watch. I like part of the reason why I like having a fountain pen. I'm not a fountain pen freak. I don't have 90 of them. I have one.
Mm-hmm.
But the fiddly moments of having a fountain pen, I enjoy doing that stuff.
The person in your life, listener, that has a good fountain pen probably would also appreciate a good newspaper subscription.
That's true. I
And
was filling out the crossword puzzle with my fountain pen just yesterday.
And it just fits the Kendall brand, and I love that about you.
I will say, if it helps, we were just out of town this past weekend, and I walked into our hotel lobby, and they had a very nice, hotels are doing a great job of having very nice open, areas for people to sit and do different things.
Mm-hmm.
And the first main table when you walked in had a stack of probably 10 to 12 newspapers. And I looked over and went, that's nice.
Sure.
That's nice for those people.
Yeah,
That they still have that. Because they could cut that expense. And they could just say, pull it up on your iPhone. Go on
Yeah.
Reddit.
I have found that if I'm staying at a nice hotel, I will grab a copy of the Wall Street Journal
Yeah.
on my way as a part of my check-in process.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling fancy.
Because you know what feeling you want to experience. You want to grab it and fold it up and feel it under your arm as
And
you
go ride
carry
a
it up
subway.
to your room. And you want to be able to throw it down on the table when you walk in the room and look at the front cover and go, huh.
I have a Wall Street Journal in my room.
Yep. And you're really hoping that cleaning lady went, wow.
Look at this guy.
He reads the journal.
He reads the journal.
I swatted one of my kids on the head with a rolled up newspaper too just yesterday. And just out of fun. No, it wasn't out of angst.
I was going to say, did they
I had it
deserve
with me. We were on our way to the van, and I just pop, another good thing that newspapers are for.
This is related but feels different.
Mm-hmm.
In the days of being able to have Kindle and 1,000 books on your device.
Yeah,
I still want a paper book.
I'm a
So
I'm a
it feels a
physical
little
book guy.
different, but is it easier for me to put it on my iPad instead of carrying 3 books on a work trip. Yep, but guess what? I still do carry 3 books on a work trip.
There you go.
Do you? Well, I think I'm going to weigh in on this, and I think I'll have a different opinion than you would expect me to have.
Okay.
Newspaper's a little different in that you have a limited time window that information is relevant.
Right.
With a book, I would also rather have a physical book because I'm not taking a digital book and sharing it. But if I have a book and somebody wants to borrow it, I can say, here, take this, enjoy. So I think the urgency with which you need to read the thing changes and changes the functionality for me. News is just as good on a website.
That's a good
A
point.
book is very different. You can
A book has an extra dimension to it that surpasses just the personal experience, whereas newspaper is basically just your personal experience.
Yeah, and when communities have those little book stops where it'll be like a little box, you can put a book in there, and that is
Little
relevant
libraries.
to a lot of people for a long time. A newspaper, almost instantly, it's
Well, okay. So what about this? If you're the kind of person that subscribed to a news source for their digital stuff, but found out that for pretty much the same price you could get that and one on your driveway every morning, would
Well,
you
then
want
sure.
the one on your driveway?
well, sure, yeah. If you're talking like this is like my old man getting Sirius XM thing. Like if it was $12 for 12 weeks digital only, or $14 for 12 weeks for digital and print, all right, send me the physical, like a couple bucks. If it was $25 for 12 weeks, no, I'm not doing that. So there's certainly a tipping point on price.
The other layer is personalization. So with a good book, I want to highlight and make notes in the margins. You wouldn't do that with a newspaper, but there is the tactile feeling of having it with your coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
So like something about a book, especially if it's like I don't know, like not self-help, but like something where you're jotting down parts or highlighting cool quotes or whatever. I just bought 2 books. I bought a copy of Moby Dick from Half Price Books because Adam Savage was talking about it.
All right.
And then I bought Neil Peart's first book, Ghostwriter, after the loss of his daughter. She was about to start college. She died in a single car accident. And then his wife died shortly thereafter of cancer. And so he hopped on a motorcycle and just started riding. And he had a history of when he was, so this is the drummer from the band Rush, if you're not familiar. He had a history when they were touring. All the other guys would ride the bus or the caravan or whatever. He'd be like, I'll see you guys in the next town. And he would just get on a bike and just meet them there. Either a bicycle or a motorcycle. And so Ghostwriter is how he grieved their loss, his only 2 immediate family members, by hopping on a red BMW and packing the saddlebags and putting a sleeping bag and tent and stuff, and just sort of finding him. Yeah, anyway, I just started the book. My buddy Greg recommended it to me, and then I've been reading the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas, and that's super fascinating. So anyway, all 3 physical copies, just something about the smell of old books, and yeah, I'm with you. So I appreciate your appreciation.
Can I throw in one more angle on
of
this?
a good newspaper. Yes, this is
in our
the deepest dive on newspaper and books in the history of our podcast.
In our limitless paper and a paperless world discussion.
Nice.
My grandfather has probably 40 years worth of National Geographic.
Oh boy.
Does that add, is there additional value in that? It's not a newspaper. It's not a book. It's a magazine. And there's all different kinds of magazines. So like it can vary wildly from genre of magazine to genre. Because some things are collectible. You could have 40 years worth of like a sports catalog that would be valuable for a whole different reason then.
Right.
But National Geographic, specifically science learns, science gets better, and it develops. But does that have value? Does a National Geographic catalog, a 10-year-old catalog, a 5-year-old
Like collector's
catalog,
value, or
no,
like
not
just
necessarily.
posterity?
Yeah, not necessarily collectors, because somebody somewhere collects everything.
Right.
But just for sake of our book versus newspaper discussion. Is there value to the magazine?
To having a physical yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a magazine person, but never have been really. I've had subscriptions here and there, but for me personally, I'm not much into magazines. But for the same reasons, I'd imagine there are people that would, for the exact same reasons I'm into newspapers.
Known for its beautiful photos, for sure, and maybe people will want to cut those out and frame them. But I imagine even many of the stories are no longer relevant. Like in 1970, it was like, we've discovered this rare tribe of people in this secluded spot. They've never seen an airplane fly over the village. And like today, they have phones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rendering the article. No longer.
So it feels like maybe magazine's closer to newspaper than it is to book.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. All right.
This is sounding like an NPR podcast.
It has a pace of one.
No kidding. You mentioned Moby Dick. And
Yes.
I recently picked up from the library and had to renew because I haven't been able to get around to much. There's a famous Russian novel, The Brothers Karamazov. I think you might have to be a little bit of if you know much about Russian literature, then that's like one of the huge ones.
Are we claiming this podcast knows much about Russian literature?
One of our
but
listeners was like, hey, wait a minute.
I'm trying to make it sound more NPR-ish in order to mention, hey, here's another smart guy.
Dostoevsky.
Another smart guy book that we're reading. But it was by the same guy who wrote Crime and Punishment.
I think you brought up
another Russian banger.
I think Dylan brought up a good point about here's a question based on your observation that perhaps I just want to be seen with the Wall Street Journal as opposed to actually. How many things in your life, if you're honest, do you think you do because you want to be the guy that does that, or you actually truly deeply enjoy it? And I'm not saying there's necessarily a layer of falseness there, but you could just go, I want to be a guy that does that, or purchases that, or has that as a hobby.
I mean, I'm not thought much of it as a guy at all, so it's not really an issue for me. But if you're talking about things that you do out of a basic sense of obligation, I think trying to maintain...
No. Not obligation. Sorry to cut you off. I mean, like, and it could be an altruistic thing. It could be, I want to be the type of dad that sits down and is willing to put on a tiara and have a tea party with my daughter. That's an example of doing it in a good way.
Yeah.
But you could go, I don't actually like hunting, but I feel like I need to be a guy that likes hunting.
Yeah. So
I'm going to hunt occasionally. Not true for me.
There's a peer pressure side to it.
Yeah.
But also like I'm trying to my ideal self is not who I am. I'm going to try to get there.
It's a little bit of a brand thing. Like I want to be known as the type of guy that fill in the blank.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people go through that on various levels, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes I think it's therapeutic probably, and sometimes I think it's harmful. It just probably depends on the thing. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's totally a thing that everybody does.
I'd be interested to hear from the listeners, like your thoughts on, and I don't know, maybe there's a better way of framing the question, but is there anything you do because you feel like you want to be the type of person that does that thing and you might not even enjoy it all that much? Not out of like obligation, like we've talked about, like the male sort of joie de vivre ego, sort of like I got to be able to back up a trailer or drive a stick shift. Not even that, really. Just like you're putting out, and again, it suggests that it's false, but I don't want to imply that.
Sometimes it can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be, but you're doing it because you want to be the type of guy that does that thing. I want to be the type of guy that sits in a coffee shop and reads C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
When you're like, if I'm honest, I'd rather be playing Warzone.
Yeah. Or even like I want to fit in at my job perhaps. And so I want to be the kind of guy who works in this kind of job in this kind of city. And so, like, I'm going to start acting like
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah.
start believing the things these people
Yeah.
believe. And you know, and everything from, like, I'm going to start, like, picking up on their sports teams if they're even into sports.
Yep.
If not, then I'm not going to. I'm going to start, like, you know, chasing after their political points. And like, I'm going to start changing some very fundamental things about myself so that I fit into what I want to be.
Yeah, that's a fun question.
Yeah, man. I almost feel like you'd have to weigh in for me. You'd have to say, I think you do this thing. I don't. You're listing things off, and I'm not going, oh, yeah, I do that.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's a thing.
No, that just tells me and I know this about you, you're not the type of guy that does that.
Yeah, I don't think that Dylan has this in spades.
I struggle with this. I go, am I liking this because I like it, or do I like it because people I admire like it? And it's an acceptance thing. It's a wanting to, a desire to fit in thing, or even and more innocuous. I just want to have something to talk about them with at the water cooler.
Sure.
Talk with them about at the water cooler.
As because I'm trying to come up with other examples that might help listeners like me that aren't self-aware enough or maybe don't deal with it enough. Is it like, could it also be like a thing that you bought because you'd hoped that you would do that thing? Like
That feels closely related.
Somebody like, I went out and bought a record player with 10 records and have never put one on because I wanted to be the guy who was into records.
Exactly that.
Or I went out and bought a bunch of workout equipment to put in my house and I've never used it because I wanted to be the workout guy.
Yeah. Have you done any of that stuff?
No. I felt like they might be good examples.
The workout one feels, I think there's a difference between the vinyl one and the workout one, because the workout one you could go like
aspirational a bit.
well, that's still like you have a goal for physical fitness and you want to lose 20 pounds. That's fine. But like vinyl's a very specific, like I'm trying to enter into a part of subculture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anyway, you get it. Kicking the dead horse.
It's interesting. I'd love to dissect this more with some real examples, but I don't know this. We weren't prepared. We need to circle back to this topic another time.
We do. So anyway, the reason why I bring up the Wall Street Journal.
So sorry.
Man, we took that.
This is amazing.
It should have been a tangent.
No, there was an article that I came across that I was excited to read because I just want to see if you guys feel the same way I do.
He said so anyway.
Here's the headline: NASA's DART spacecraft slams into asteroid in effort to alter its orbit. This is like Armageddon science is what happens in my head. They are literally trying to figure out if they can use a high-speed rocket to alter an asteroid's path just in case one starts coming toward Earth one day and they need to blow it out of space.
Yeah.
So
this is happening?
So NASA is testing this out. And it made me so happy. I guess this thing launched like forever ago, and it like went on an orbital path around the sun. And then let me just read some of this. An uncrewed spacecraft smashed into an asteroid Monday in an effort to deflect the distant space rock. The dramatic climax of a National Aeronautics and Space Administration mission to test whether the technique could one day be used to protect Earth. Here's a quote: "We're all just losing our minds right now," said Harrison Agrusa, a University of Maryland astrophysicist and investigation team member of the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, mission. This is a 1,300-pound DART spacecraft was traveling at more than 14,000 miles an hour when it hit the asteroid Dimorphos, a much more massive 525-foot wide space rock that orbits a larger one. The asteroid pair, what astronomers call a binary asteroid, was about 7 million miles from Earth at the time of impact and isn't a threat to our planet. So right now, like there are no asteroids that they're aware of that are like going to cause a problem with Earth.
Except for that one.
Even that one like wasn't a problem.
Okay.
But they just want to know, like, could we?
So this was launched a while ago.
This was on, I think, in like November was when it launched.
And it impacted
Monday.
Are they already able to determine whether or not they've altered its course?
Not yet. So now they have to. They're going to be studying this thing now. So this particular asteroid is orbiting another asteroid,
a binary,
a larger one.
I listened.
And so what they're trying to do is see if they can change the speed of its orbit. So this didn't explode the asteroid. They're hoping that it was enough of an impact to knock it off its orbit or to slow its orbit down. I assume because it will have less mass now. Hopefully they took a big enough chunk out of it. And so the idea there being like things that are in space that would collide with Earth are in an orbit around something. And so the thought there is if something's orbit is coming around, it's going to hit Earth. If they can just like delay that orbit so that it doesn't come around until like the whole system is past Earth, then they've diverted.
How funny would it be if they would have diverted it to Earth? Don't want to close my eye. Don't want to fall asleep. Call me, babe.
In my head, this is how this all went down. There's approximately 9 to 12 NASA scientists sitting around a boardroom, and Daryl, the janitor, mopping behind them. And Daryl just goes, they're talking about what to do with these asteroids, and Daryl's like, under his breath, you should just do with it in Armageddon. And they're like, what? What's Armageddon?
Say that again.
And then it cuts to a scene where they're all huddled around his Android phone as he streams the movie Armageddon, and all of them are just like nodding along, like yeah, okay, I see where they're going with this. And then next, Daryl's in the control room, and they're like, Daryl, what do we do next? What did they do? I feel like that's how that happened. That's how that played out.
That's funny.
I love it.
So that's my fun news for the week.
Wow. It's amazing, like, how much I don't appreciate about space and space exploration and what's going on and what billionaires are doing with their money. Neil deGrasse Tyson said the other day that it's going to get to a point where there's so much space junk in our orbit that we can no longer even launch things.
Yeah.
Because there aren't going to be windows in the space junk big enough to get rockets through them. So then the next thing he was talking about was, could you essentially have giant space nets where you like somehow slow the trajectory or catch to like do space cleanup? And there's basically no way, because they're traveling at such an intense speed, that there's no way you could like catch the space junk that's floating around. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ways off before that kind of thing becomes
sure.
an actual problem. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, you better think of it now, because in 1,000 years, this is going to be a real problem if we don't change things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
biodegradable rockets.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do what we're good at, and we'll just push that problem to the next generation.
There's a famous quote out there that like the United States, or maybe it was just people in general, but it works for the United States, are absolutely terrible at preventing anything, but we're pretty good at adapting. And so there is a probability that like the nets to slow down something so that we can still get something through for a while, that's probably where we're heading.
Wow.
It's like the Churchill quote on Americans. It's like you can count on Americans to do the right thing at the very last minute.
Yeah.
You know, which is something that
It seems like a very specific, in relation to a very specific war. This feels like a good spot to take a break and hear some words from some of our friends in Odd Pods Media.
I'm Richie, a.k.a. Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, a.k.a. Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
Music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
We asked you all some good questions, and we want to hear your responses. How would we gather those responses, you ask? Well, there's a lot of ways. You could, and if you're not following us on social media, please do that first. First thing, at From the Mid-Pod everywhere. Do follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTubes, all the things. You can comment in any one of our posts. You can also email us at fromthemiddle@protonmail.com. That's fromthemiddle@proton, PROTON, mail.com. And then in our LinkTree, which is attached to every single description of everything we put out, we have a phone number that you can call, leave a voicemail, text, whatever you prefer. That's 614-383-8412. One more time, 614-383-8412. We would love to hear from you. So we got a question this week. And Dylan, did this come from you?
Yeah.
Or someone you're friends with?
I pulled this one in.
Okay.
So here's the question. I think it's some questions in a question, but here's a question. What's the etiquette around asking neighbors for favors? How comfortable do you have to be to ask them to do things like, quote, keep an eye on our house while on vacation, or grab a package or mail while you're out, house sit, take care of pets, watch kids? So what's the etiquette around asking neighbors for favors, and how comfortable do you have to be to ask them to help?
Oof, so many layers. Let's get out the obvious. How well you know them is the biggest consideration, and then how big the ask is. Keeping an eye on my house just means text me if there's some weird shit going on.
If there's a fire
Yeah.
at my house, a broken window.
Asking someone to do what they're already doing, living their life, and just keep a loose eye on your
Right.
house while you're gone, that's not a big ask.
Yeah. Mow my lawn twice a week is a big ask.
Mow 2 strips of my yard, even bigger ask. Take care of my pets, watch my kids. Now you really have to know these people and have lived next to them for a while, be in regular community, have had cookouts with them. That feels like way more of a significant thing. Grab my mail and put it on a pile on your countertop for 7 days while I'm in Myrtle Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Pretty
a big
simple.
deal. Pretty simple.
I would think that people should ask themselves, how would I feel if they were to ask me the same thing? Right?
Good.
'Cause they're-
good filter.
They're my neighbor, and there's some things that let's say you don't know them at all. There's some things that you can not necessarily assume, but you can think along the lines of, we probably have a similar socioeconomic status. And if you've seen how old or young they are, that gives you an idea. If they're about your age, you could think to yourself, man, they probably have a lot of the same thoughts and things that I do, because we're living in a very similar world.
Right.
Right. And so at that point, it's probably pretty safe to answer that question for yourself first.
Right.
What would I do? What would I think? And then I tend to find in these circumstances that the things that sometimes that you possibly even wish that people would ask you to do, but they don't, or you just think to yourself, man, I really want to be kind in this way. If someone ever asks me, I'm going to do it. I would say that like a lot of people feel the exact same way you do. And sometimes you're freaking yourself out for nothing.
Right.
So if it's something like that, if it's you're asking them to get your mail, absolutely go ask them. I think that if they have a teenager, especially living in their house, and you're looking for a babysitter, I think it'd be perfectly appropriate to like ask them and see if you could talk to their son or daughter about babysitting your kids, and then pay them whatever you would pay a babysitter. But now it's a little bit more comfortable, perhaps because of your neighbor, even if you don't know them that well. That kind of thing. But yeah, I would think that you would have to be around and know them pretty well before you start doing things like just assuming that they can come over and watch your kids, or like drop your kids off at their house so you can go do something. There's relationships between neighbors that are exactly that good. But it sounds like that you're probably not there yet.
You're new to suburbia.
Yeah.
So can we give some real life examples, Kendall and I, of ones that
Sure.
would that be helpful?
Sure.
I know this isn't your question, but so like, what are some that you find yourself? I can start while you're thinking. So, like, one really silly one, which I almost caught myself this year and was like, is borrowing tools.
Mhm.
Very specific tools that a neighbor might have that you don't. Something that you don't feel like you're justified in. It would be foolish to go spend a lot of money on a certain thing, a pressure washer, if you
Right.
use one twice a year, or if you're going to use an auger to dig post holes to put up a fence. That's something that you do at your home once every 10 to 15 years. You're not going to have a post hole digger, a big auger for something like that. But if your neighbor already has one and you find yourself in the position where you need to put up a fence, that's a perfect thing to say, hey man, I know you have a post hole digger. Do you mind if I borrow that? Right. So that's one that I do. The silly example is, so I don't have any pliers big enough to unhook the plumbing for my pool. So when I open the pool in the spring and when I close it in the fall, I have to ask my neighbor for his channel locks. He has 2 pairs of Husky channel locks, and I'm always asking to borrow them because they are able to get around the 2.5 or 3-inch pipe or whatever it is to unhook all the plumbing. And it's silly, but I have to text him. And I'm like, what would it cost me to go buy 2 channel locks? It's probably not ridiculous. How much does it bother me to have to ask him and wait on his response is probably how much I should either go or not go and get my own pair. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Another good example that we find ourselves in regularly is like if we're visiting friends or family further away and our appointment or our hangout or our get together is lasting longer than we thought it would, we know our poor dogs are probably really having to pee. Our neighbor to one side absolutely loves animals. She loves our dogs and she has access to our house.
Yeah.
So we'll say, hey, is there any way you could pop over and just let him outside real quick? Takes her all of 5 minutes. She goes back home and we get to stay an extra 3 or 4 hours because she's agreed to do that. We don't abuse that. We don't take it lightly. We're very grateful. We often buy her things when we're out at those events or we're shopping in Amish country. We'll bring her back something nice as a little like, hey, thanks for doing that. We know that's annoying and we try not to do it regularly, but it significantly alters our experience. If she's willing to do that, we get an extra 3 or 4 hours with our family and it took her 5 minutes, right? And so that's one of those things where, like you said, if she asked us to do the same, oh, no problem. Absolutely. We'd love to do that. So that's typically, those are 2 examples of like silly little things that I find myself asking of neighbors.
A couple things that come to mind for me is we did have a neighbor, teenager, babysit our kids once. They since have moved and we don't have teenagers in our area anymore. But that's one kind of just basic example. But it's like I said, it's like hiring any other babysitter. We paid her the same we would pay any other babysitter. Yeah. But it was just nice knowing that she lived close by.
Yep.
Another thing is our next door neighbor. She lives by herself, and the kids love her. And I've talked to her and told her this, that like we've talked to our kids about, smoke detectors go off in the middle of the night or something like that. The first thing you do is you come and get mommy and daddy, and then you do whatever we tell you to do. If you come to get mommy and daddy aren't waking up, here's what you need to do. And essentially they have their 2 different ways to get out of the house, and their job is to go to Laura's house. And I talked to Laura about that and told her that they're coming if anything ever happens to us.
Yeah.
And she's cool with that. And then the neighbor across the street, like he's called us before because we've left our garage door open. And he just noticed, which has been really helpful. But he also has a creek that runs along the back of his yard, and we've been given the green light now from him that like we can trounce through his yard to get to the creek if the kids want to go visit the creek sometime. So we'll take the kids down there.
Yeah.
At this point, without asking him if we can walk through his yard to get to his creek.
Yeah.
So that begs, Corey, your answer sort of begs a follow-up question. What's the threshold for you to where you're returning favors with a thank you of some kind? A gift card, an actual gift? Like, you're not doing that if they're, quote, keeping an eye on your house.
Yeah.
But like, well, maybe some people do. But what's the beginning threshold? What's something somebody would do for you where you go, okay, we're going to pick them up something?
If it's like barely a hiccup, I might still do something just as like my thing is, it's not for this reason, it sounds bad, but I want them to be willing to do it again in the future.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, I want them to go, that was unnecessary that you got me that gift, but it's surely appreciated. And now when you ask again, I'll jump at the chance to mow your grass while you're at the beach.
Yeah, and you can up the ask then because they know that there's something coming in at the end of the whole thing.
So, but if it causes them a noteworthy alteration to their life, or it's a moderate disruption to their life, or a significant thing that they have to do that's extra, then that certainly deserves, a nice gift or a thank you beyond just a spoken thank you the next time I see them at the mailbox.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dylan?
Look, you guys have a lot more suburban time than I do. So I do think I think you nailed the first part of it. If I'm going for a more specific threshold, do you feel like, the $5 or $10 Starbucks gift card is is a good,
for sure,
like a starting point?
Yeah.
You throw in like their favorite. They take their kids to McDonald's all the time.
I would think even like a magnet from, depending on what it is, like a magnet from Niagara Falls might be perfect.
Okay, so maybe like a couple $5, $10 little nifty gifty.
Yeah,
from the place you went. Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Some sand from Myrtle Beach.
A Jarro sand.
I don't want to move off of this too soon, so let's keep rounding that out. But I have a follow-up question based on the Niagara Falls.
No,
magnet.
go with the
dude.
magnet.
I don't want a thing from a place that I didn't go.
I'm with you.
I don't want your magnet from Niagara
That's
Falls.
a good point.
I wasn't there.
Just like your greeting card, Corey's throwing that magnet in the trash.
Now, I feel bad because my mom got me a gift. She got me a Harley Davidson shirt
That was my idea. You're welcome.
from a dealership that I didn't go to in a town I didn't go to.
Yeah.
She got it because it's a Harley shirt, and it's a nice Harley shirt. And she spent HD. There's a joke with HD Harley Davidson that it means $100 because you can't go into Harley without spending $100. So it's a nice Harley shirt, but I didn't go there.
I understand.
Then I even
You feel
get
like a liar.
it even gets weirder. So
And she didn't even wrap it in the funnies.
here's where it gets weirder. Like, okay, so we're going to talk about this in a second, but I'm traveling to a place soon where there's a Harley dealer in a European place. Do I still get the Harley thing, the tchotchke from the Harley dealer because I was there, or do I only get it if my bike was there? Another example is we got a cargo box for the top of our van.
Yeah.
If we go to a cool space in the other car, isn't it kind of like lying to get the sticker for the cargo thing because the van wasn't there, the car was there?
Wow.
I couldn't
That's
be
too far, man.
I couldn't be doing a bigger Jerry Seinfeld eye roll at those questions. Like, God, who cares?
So I
Do whatever you want. No one cares.
So your Kendall's with me on the first thing.
I'm with you on the
Okay.
first
All
thing,
right.
and then I lost
I'll
you on
play
the
ball.
second thing.
I'll play
I mean,
ball.
I buy magnets. I buy a French magnet.
Yeah.
From places.
Some people buy spoons. Some people
Yeah,
buy
yeah.
shot glasses.
My fridge wasn't, didn't go to the dunes.
My fridge didn't go to the dunes. That's the name of the episode.
But it's sitting there with its high and mighty magnet.
If you want to go to a European country and get a magnet, you do it. Because by golly, you were there.
Oh my
So
goodness.
so you're saying if I'm there, it counts, and that sticker or tchotchke can go on whatever.
That's right.
Okay.
Anything that's yours.
Now I wasn't there. I wasn't even there, and
I
now I
mean-
got a Fort Myers Beach Harley shirt.
I mean, let them live, right? I don't care if other people do it, but I'm with you on feeling like myself. Like I don't want it if it's just me myself.
Because here's where I go.
But it is like a Gen Zer is walking around in a Nirvana t-shirt somewhere and they can't name 5 songs.
True. Okay, that
Right?
feels different. That's totally posing. I at least have the Harley.
We
Sure.
just did a gatekeeping episode on Infectious Groove podcast about this very subject.
No. But
I'm afraid somebody's going to go like, "Oh, that's a nice dealership, isn't it?" And I'll be like, "I didn't actually go. My mom got it because she knows I have a Harley."
Yeah.
But if they said, "Oh, you were in the Geneva Harley dealer," I'll go, "Yep."
If somebody's grandpa landed on Normandy at D-Day but didn't fire his gun, did he really fight in World War II?
That feels a little different.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like,
trying
well,
to
it's like
give you
the music thing. It's like I know. My point is they're not listening to music. That's my point.
Right.
I'm
I at
trying
least
to-
have the Harley.
You were
I'm
there.
not saying that a Gen Zer can't listen to Nirvana or like doesn't have the right attitude for Nirvana. I'm saying they don't listen to Nirvana.
They don't.
You do whatever you want.
Okay. I don't want your magnet from Niagara Falls.
Nobody give Corey anything.
That's right.
He doesn't
place
want it
I
because he wasn't there.
Well, from a place he wasn't, that specifically says
The place.
that possibly nods to him being
Bringing
there
me
when he wasn't.
saltwater taffy from your Myrtle Beach vacation is different
Good.
because that's a consumable thing that I can enjoy that is known
Mm-hmm.
for being created in that place. Bringing me back a Myrtle Beach shot glass, I don't understand. I don't want
I know the point you're making, but I was going to buy you a UCS Mandalorian Razor Crest. It was made in China by Lego, so I'm not
that's
going to.
not even kind of close.
I know.
That's, I don't
So
know.
anyway, we hope we helped you, Midler, on that question about what to do with your neighbors. Just run it by the filter. Would I want them to ask? How would I feel if they asked me the same thing? Would I roll my eyes and be disgusted, or would I be like, I'm so honored that they asked me? Here's what I often say: Don't steal my blessing. I want to be able to help you out, and if you don't ask, you're taking away the opportunity for me to be able to bless you with that thing.
Yeah, so stop being a jerk and start asking people to do things for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that should go.
Oh boy,
It appears we have some delicious treats and
we do.
drinks in front of
so
us.
there's a candy store in the town where I live, and they have
In the
a,
town
where I was born.
lived a man.
Speaking of British bands, that is exactly where this candy is from. They have a section in that store that is all international stuff that you can't buy here. In the States, they import it. It's funny because some of it might actually be made here and then imported to Great Britain, for example, and then they import it right back. But in any case, there are Kit Kat flavors for our friends in Great Britain. Did you know that you have Kit Kat flavors that like we've never heard of here? First of all, a Kit Kat bar that is like this size, the size
how
of a regular
thick.
candy bar. We don't have these here.
That's
it's
so
incredible.
thick.
We don't have Kit Kats this size here, and we don't have the flavors. So I'll let you guys start because you guys have split in half a peanut butter Kit Kat that I don't have in front of me.
And peanut butter is a distinctly American thing.
It is. I'm surprised we don't have peanut butter Kit Kats here.
I'm surprised we don't. And there's a lot of people from out. I mean, a lot of people in America that don't like peanut butter, but also from especially outside of America because it's a very American thing to grow up on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or things like that. I'm very excited.
So, I mean, I guess there's probably not a whole lot to talk about, but we can just kind of sample and give general ideas. What do you guys think of peanut butter on a Kit Kat?
I'm so sorry for our friends who suffer from misophonia.
Yeah, they'll be okay.
Interesting. Does it have a little bit of coffee-ish?
I was noticing a smokiness.
A smokiness. That's interesting.
It's got
Something in the wafer tastes.
Well, it's probably because they have to use actual like crushed peanuts to be able to sell it in Europe versus
Probably.
like peanut butter flavoring.
I've also had a lot of this reposado tequila.
That's a good point.
So it might be actual roasted
yeah.
nuts that have been ground down into a peanut butter cream versus like what we have for peanut butter, which is very oily.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's
Whatever that coffee smoky flavor is, I'm here for
I think that's a roasted peanut flavor.
it. I'm here for it.
It's delicious. It's got the Kit Kat crunch. It's got some creaminess in it. The chocolate's good as always. And American and UK chocolate is very different. Again, just standards for like how
Sure.
much sugar and how
Yes,
it's made.
you're right. The
and
definitions are different.
very different. But I didn't think that chocolate flavor was that different, surprisingly. And it might have just been masked by the crunch and the peanut butter.
It could be. Let's do a caramel.
Do you know the thing while we're tasting that one that like people who didn't grow up on Hershey's think it tastes like vomit? There's like a whole thing online about this. And it's something about, isn't there something like mercury in Hershey's?
Wow.
something weird like that.
We're gonna get like libel, slander, cease and desist.
Nobody's listening to this.
But we'll fight it all the way.
With our kitty of $176.
That's really good.
The caramel is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a big gap there where there could be more caramel.
That's good. I like them both.
And then chunky cookie dough.
The caramel is more caramely than the peanut butter is peanut buttery.
Oh, okay.
Well said. Accurate.
So, if you had to pick one, even if you're a peanut butter fan, if you really like caramel, you might want to pick that one. Because the peanut butter one's giving you a lot of roasted peanut versus what we would describe as like Reese's peanut butter or a Buckeye peanut butter flavor. This is the chunky cookie dough.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All three are good for different reasons. I'm going to save the rest for my fam.
That's interesting cookie dough.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on what it's supposed to. It's kind of almost like a honey sweet.
That's like those stroopwafel.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a Danish thing?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're right. Stroop waffles.
Oatmeal cookie.
Yeah.
I taste that like chewy stroop waffle.
Mm.
Yeah, it might have a bit of an oatmeal,
caramel covered one,
oatmeal
almost.
cookie kind of stroopwafel, maybe blended up with an oatmeal cookie or something.
And then finally, we have the mystery Mountain Dew Zero Sugar
like
limited edition 2022 Voo Dew.
I have to admit, I've had this one.
So have
It's
I.
so
This is
good.
the last of the. I haven't looked anything up because I wanted my guesses to seem legit because they are.
So excited.
I need to
As to
cleanse
what
the
the-
palate between.
That's what the mystery flavor is. It is refreshing after that chocolate, however. I'm curious as to what you guys think. I have my thoughts.
I'm curious. I have my honed in what I think the flavor is. I'm curious if Corey agrees.
All right.
This tastes like a thing I've had before, but I can't put my finger on it.
It could be to me, it's kind of
Taquitos?
Takis,
Taquitos. See, I don't even know what they're called.
which I think they are little taquitos.
it's something like Skittles or Starburst or Nerds, or it's something in that fruity candy flavor category.
Like a kind of how I felt about the Dream Coke, like a generic fruit kind of flavor, like a
Yeah.
fruit striped gum kind of thing. Those are not my thoughts exactly.
Nah, I think I'm getting like another pop.
Oh,
Anyway,
It's good.
so
It's very fruity for me.
I taste, and this is where I want one of you to try to look up and see what people out there are agreeing on. I taste two basic things. I taste a basic citrus flavor, and blue. The soda itself is clear, but there's a blue taste, a blue flavor that blue sodas and blue candies often have a blue flavor, like a blue raspberry-ish kind of thing. It's almost like a blue raspberry meets some kind of citrus. I taste citrus and blue. That's what I taste.
Yeah, there's some very distinct American flavors that have no, I'm going to say real counterpart, because they're like a made up. And I was actually watching a documentary on flavoring.
Okay.
And somebody was talking about blue raspberry, how it's basically like grape and something else. Like that's how people get to what
Blue
we
raspberry.
think of as blue raspberry. But
Maybe
it's the
that's
same
what
with
this is.
nacho cheese. Nacho cheese is not based on a cheese. It's based on like a variety of blended melted cheeses
Interesting.
to get to what we think of as
Nacho.
specifically like a Taco Bell nacho cheese
Yeah.
versus like queso when you go to a Mexican restaurant or something.
Yeah, this isn't like Monterey Jack mixed with peppers. It's
No,
like-
no. This
right.
is it's a very distinct flavor that we think of as like a yellow nacho cheese. You go to a sporting event, you get chips and nachos.
Right.
It's a big yellow cup of bright yellow milk.
Exactly. The little Frito can. Of
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you finding now, Corey?
So a few different of the top articles. Opening the bottle releases a fruity candy aroma that I found similar to a bag of gummy bears and other chewy fruit candies. Flavor-wise, the soda is fairly sour with fruit candy notes. Another says, some fans swear it tastes like cotton candy mixed with hints of candied apples. Others are convinced it's a mix of cream soda and citrus. Just skimming.
Huh.
I'm getting almost like a Gushers.
Okay.
I could maybe see gummy bears.
Yeah.
If somebody said gummy bears, I could
Interesting.
buy
It's
that.
clear, huh?
It is clear.
It's like a
I
whitish.
think that's because they don't want to throw off the mystery thing. They don't want to.
Okay, they don't want to.
I think that if I were to color this, I would color it blue.
Do you think Sour Patch Kids, if you tried again, we could maybe hone in? This is like us getting to the Coke flavor.
Yeah, I can be convinced on Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah. That might be it. And that could be
Hey, I just found that. Sour Patch Kids, then they changed their answer to nerds. Dylan said that earlier.
my tongue's getting close.
I've only heard one person mention
tongue,
citrus. And that
Lemon-
was like the first thing that hit me was citrus.
Blue raspberry comes up in this article, so there's that blue. Maybe that's what I'm getting with the Gushers, the blue Gushers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, that's interesting.
I don't know. There we go. I think we have all, we can agree again, we have an excellent palate collectively.
We sure do. When it comes to Mountain Dew and taco related
And fake
things.
cheeses, we
Yeah.
are at the top.
Well, thank you, United Kingdom, for your chunky Kit Kats. And thank you, Kendall, for bringing them in.
Yeah, dude,
Hey,
this
thank
was
you
awesome.
guys for. I mean, I brought Kit Kats and Mountain Dew. You brought gourmet pizza and tequila.
Hey,
So
that's true.
You know.
you brought Mexican. Here's a classy move. He's been hanging on to this moment of bringing tequila to us for a while.
Yeah.
And when he does, not only does he bring us tequila, he brings us the Mexican pizza to go with it.
Yeah. And multiple flavors.
I
at
said that. I said that at home. I'm like, that'd be perfect with.
It
You
would
did.
be, yeah.
Yeah. Your pairing was on point.
We're classy that we're pairing our tequilas with the right kinds of pizza. We're reading smart guy books now.
Kendall's got a newspaper.
And then washing it down with
newspaper.
Kit Kats and Mountain Dews. This couldn't be a more from the middle podcast.
Oh, that's very funny. I am excited to venture to the fair land of the United Kingdoms.
Yeah.
I found out, I've been asked rather, if I could support two separate meetings, back-to-back weeks, one in London and the next in Geneva, Switzerland. And my answer was yes. So I'm excited to do that. I recognize that has implications for my wife and all that she does to hold down the proverbial fort while I'm gone. The only question that the lady that does the scheduling on our team asked was, so it's basically up to you if you want to spend your weekend in London or if you want to go to Geneva early and just spend the weekend in Switzerland before
London,
that
Switzerland
gig.
is smaller.
And then I remembered that we have dear friends in the United Kingdom and I'd like to visit them. So I'm messaging back and forth with the hosts of the Grief Burrito podcast, the world's best video game
I'm so
podcast
jealous.
ever.
Yeah.
So jealous.
And we're making loose plans to try to connect on my free weekend in England. So I think it's about a 2-hour train ride from West London up to Manchester, where Harrison lives. And I'm sorry, am I blowing up his spot? Won't tell you his last name. Harrison Smith is his
From
name.
the Grief
No.
Burrito podcast.
from the Grief Burrito podcast. It's about burritos. And anyway, so that should be really fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens. If it does, we will shoot some vlogs and put those on our socials. But it would be really cool to hang out with those guys, and it's been kind of quiet at work, so I'm looking forward to getting back out there. And I like travel and new places and
That'll be
faces.
fun. Those guys are. There's not only two guys that I would like want to see overseas, but just flat out two guys that, like, if they lived in Ohio, I would have probably seen them a dozen times by now.
They're
just 'cause
some of my favorite.
I want to go chill with those
Yeah.
two.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to
I
going.
want to go play guitar with Harrison and probably have and embarrass myself in front of him for sure. He's far better than I, but nonetheless,
They're the best of boys.
yeah.
I'm excited to have a beer with them in a pub, and let's play the little.
I think Corey is
Not that one. Wrong one.
hilarious.
Not that one.
Not that
So
one.
sorry.
Not that one. Here it is.
Can I just say, Dylan has one of my favorite wits in podcast.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
He's very funny.
So sharp.
I'm blushing. Like
To
Yeah.
hear that accent for a half day and just hang out with them. Oh man, it's going to be great. Harrison and I are going to rub beards together. It's going to be magical.
It's getting weird now.
Yeah. So
Are you
anyway,
gonna slow hug?
we had a bit of a debate on what I should take them. I wanted to take them some Anthony Thomas Buckeyes.
Anthony Thomas is a Columbus-based candy company, chocolate company. They make marvelous chocolates, but the general consensus there's a homemade Buckeye recipe out there that everybody around here knows, and they are absolutely delicious because you make these little peanut butter dough balls and cover them with chocolate.
Moist
Anthony
fudge
Thomas,
balls
I'm pretty
and-
sure, is just using like peanut butter and covering it with chocolate. Like there's no doughiness to it.
It's not moist. It's
it's
hard.
It's not a good sample of what a Buckeye actually
No.
can be.
Keep your pants on. I'm not saying they're the best Buckeyes ever, but I do appreciate that they are the official Buckeye
Sure.
of the Ohio State University, and their packaging has Brutus on the front, and it's more about it being a gift from Ohio and our love of two of the three of us' love of the Ohio State University Buckeyes.
And I'm just saying that
That's
I'm
fine.
sure the very well-intentioned Anthony Thomas employees pour their heart and soul into their Buckeyes. But a Reese's is closer to a homemade Buckeye
True.
than the Anthony Thomas Buckeyes. They're great at a lot of things.
Yes.
They're just not great at Buckeyes.
So if you have ideas on should this trip continue its trajectory and actually happen, and should I connect with the Grief Burrito Boys, what should I take them from our fair land? Because
Takis.
a Kewpie burger just isn't going to keep.
I wish you could. I'm very jealous. I still vote for Buckeye because that's no other state could reasonably take Buckeyes anywhere else.
It's true.
This is the only state that can do it, and it's very unique to us. And so,
Will
I
homemade
think that-
Buckeyes
and
clear
frankly-
customs?
And frankly, green bean casserole is not exciting enough.
Oh,
So-
call the TSA. If I
Okay.
bring my own baked goods, is that kosher?
Even ask if they're wrapped and sealed. Like
They're like,
ins-
no, it's not kosher, but it could clear customs.
yeah. Ask them. What about if you like wrap it in duct tape or do something like that?
Maybe that'd be a fun family thing. We just like make some Buckeyes together, and I take a portion of them to the boys. Anyway, so that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. We might need to figure out how we're going to record while I'm on the road, but that's another thing that happens behind the scenes, not on air. And other than that, I just wanted to. I think we're kind of winding down. I wanted to
think we're
say
done.
a few other things I've consumed lately. Y'all know I'm a stand-up fan. One of my favorites is Chris D'Elia. His best friend is a guy named Brian Callen. And Brian Callen Man Tears is free on the YouTubes. It's not even on a streamer. It's very funny. Brian's writing is great, but he's a very physical comic, and I really enjoyed it. I've watched hours of him on podcasts, so I'm very familiar with his shtick, and it's really good. Brian Callen, Man Tears. And then on the documentary front, since I've already told you the books I'm reading, and you know I'm smart, I do still watch stand-up and documentaries. I got to tell you, Lulu Rich on, I believe it's Prime Video. It might have been Hulu. Lulu Rich is the real rise and fall, if you will, of LuLaRoe, the leggings, which is a multi-level marketing business that stay-at-home moms across the nation were like jazzed about for a lot of years. And the couple that was behind it, and then the state of Washington suing them for being a pyramid scheme and them saying they're not a pyramid scheme. And it's still going, by the way. But
Yeah,
they
I'm sure it
went
is.
from like the insane growth that they had in the like 2015, 16, 17s is unprecedented. Like
Crazy.
it became a gargantuan business. People were making money hand over fist.
A few were, and then a lot were losing.
Which is how those things.
That's how those things work.
Is how those things work. It's a fascinating look. I think it's like 5-6 episodes or so. It's called Lulu Rich, about Lulu Rowe. Lulu Rowe is the business. Lulu Rich is the documentary. And the characters that are the founders of that business. And man, it was good. Sherry and I, it's one of those things that Sherry and I both enjoyed watching. And you kind of watch it, and for me anyway, I was like, some of the language is like, and they took advantage of and they exploited. And I'm like, yeah, but you also willingly participated in it.
Also true.
So they're like, you can very easily see both sides. It doesn't like, because it's the founders talking. I mean, they're being interviewed in the doc. So it's like their point of view. And then some of the people, I'm sorry, and I was one of them in a different time in a different business. You're kind of just gullible, and you want community, and you want something to be a part of. And so you're participating voluntarily.
Yeah.
Now you have a different story after the fact. So it's just, man, it's just really good. And any of those like real life, like you have to stop sometimes and go, this happened to real people. Like these are real people talking.
Yeah.
It's really good. Highly recommend.
You also admitted on our drive to get the pizza something else you were caught up on that I've been talking about.
Welcome to Wrexham. Dylan wouldn't shut up about Welcome to Wrexham.
Yes.
Love you, but you wouldn't.
Yep.
You mentioned it in like 5 episodes.
Yep.
I'm glad you wouldn't shut up. I'm fully caught up, which I believe is 8 or 9 episodes. So good. You were right. I should have gotten to it sooner. Highly recommend. It's available on Hulu.
Yes.
Man, it's good. I'm sad. I told you, I'm still at the point where I want to believe that Ryan and Rob have the best of intentions with what they're doing with this club. I think, based on much of what they're saying, I feel like they're genuine. But there's a part of me that feels like they might just be doing this for the documentary. And I'm not convinced yet that they're really, truly in it for the long haul. But I want to believe that they are. Because they're playing with people's, I mean, like you said in your plug of it, Wrexham is this blue-collar industrial town in Wales. And their whole lives are this one soccer club that's been there, football club that's been there for 100 and whatever years.
To the point where locals pooled money to save the club from going under and were managing it voluntarily to keep the club from just to keep it in existence and be relegated to the lowest league.
Yeah.
And they've come in now with their money to
their
purchase.
hopes, their lives, their dreams ride on this club. And it's the longest standing international stadium in the world. This one club
still in use, still
in
being
use
used.
in Wales. And there's this one sweet lady, she's just crying, talking about the history and their ups and downs. So I feel like maybe if I'm assuming, if they're not in it for the long haul, at best, Ryan and Rob still inject a lot of money and enthusiasm into the team, a lot of money and enthusiasm into the town, and they get better. They leave the team better than when they found it, which would still be great.
That is true.
That is true.
Regardless of how they feel about the team.
The team is now in FIFA, the FIFA video game. There's all of this publicity. That will still be true. But I want to believe the fairy tale version of it is that they're in it for the long haul and they take this team to the Premier League. And
that's the hope. Eventually, if sports over there or anything like sports over here eventually gets to a point where you have to start winning games in order to sustain yourself. But for the short term, or to get yourself to a point where maybe you can afford to the players or whatever else that you need, in the short term, you can get all you need is to give people a reason to buy tickets to see something. Yeah. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
You don't need to win games for that in the short term. You just need to create a spectacle to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, people do that here. Like they'll hire a player not because he's going to be helpful to the team, just because he's going to sell tickets.
Who's the guy in Ted Lasso that they all cheer for?
Roy Kent.
Roy
Roy
Kent.
Kent.
So like Wrexham has their own version of Roy Kent.
Yeah.
Paul Mullins.
Paul Mullins. And yeah, it's very sweet. It's a fun watch. I binged like 6 episodes in a row.
And speaking of Wrexham and FIFA and things that we're watching, the next FIFA game, which is out within days of us recording this, FIFA 23, which I just bought 22. Wrexham is in that game. Wrexham is also going to be in FIFA 23 with our boy Ted Lasso and AFC Richmond. They're putting the Ted Lasso fake soccer team into FIFA.
That's beautiful.
And Ted Lasso, so you can play coach mode and you can do all that stuff with
I love
that.
it when there are crossovers.
And now I'm going to have to buy another game within weeks of buying the first one.
That's
because
awesome.
I've got to play Richmond versus
go.
Wrexham
Yeah.
in a match. And I'm so
man.
excited.
That's beautiful.
That's fun. I'm still just I'm a one trick pony. I'm just slamming through Discovery, Star Trek Discovery. I'm on the last season of that.
I can't wait to
I'll move
watch
on
that.
from there.
I can't wait to discuss that and discuss some Star Trek with you.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, if you're not watching Andor, the new Star Wars series on Disney Plus, it's going to be have 20 some episodes and 3 have been released. Go frickin' watch Andor. I'm going to say this a little early and this might come back to bite me. This might be the best Star Wars TV that we've seen yet. And there's no Jedi yet. There's no Sith. There's no space battles. There's no lightsabers.
wow.
This is just really good spy thriller set in the Star Wars universe.
Cool.
And it's been 3 episodes in. It's been very good. We'll talk more at length as the season goes on.
Word. Anything else, Willis?
Yeah, I just have to say one last thing. You guys know I'm an overthinker, and we've made jokes about the fact that I go back and put an asterisk to correct previous text messages where I misspelled something or used improper grammar. iOS 16 allows you to go back into a message and edit it and even remove it and unsend it if you wish.
Yep.
So the people only see your edited version if they've also updated. If they haven't, it comes in as another message. But if they've also updated, that's changed my world. It's my life is so much better now that I am able to edit previously sent text messages in iMessage because of iOS 16. Oh, I was so excited when I heard about that.
And in emails. You can also unsend and edit emails. So
it's so great.
functionality continues.
Public service announcement for all you overthinkers out there who can't possibly bear with the fact that you might have misspelled something. This has been a fun episode. I love hanging out with you guys. Thanks for joining us. Sorry I didn't get to partake in the taco pizza and or tequila or candy or Mountain Dew mystery flavors, but it has been fun catching up with you. Please, 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 we're serious. Please reach out to us through one of our channels. We make it sound like we get no messages. We get some, but we'd like more. And you can do that by going to From the Middle or emailing us at fromthemiddle@protonmail.com, as previously mentioned, calling the phone number. Wow, I'm fumbling over my words. It's the tequila. Calling the phone number previously stated and or commenting to any of our social medias at From the Mid Pod everywhere. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Wednesday. Or hear you, or talk to you. That's what we'll do. We'll do that.